February 1st, West Des Moines City Council meeting. Please join us for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, Ryan.
Hardman.
Present.
Trimble. Here. Hudson.
I am here.
Trevelyan.
Here.
McKinney.
Here.
We have 5 members present, Your Honor.
Ryan, any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes, Your Honor.
Move approval of the agenda as distributed.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Item 2 is citizens forum, which is the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on any item that's not part of public hearings, item 6, or new business, item 7. And if you're on the phone, please remember to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Matthew Tolman. Hi, this is Matthew Tolman. I have a question.
Okay, Matt, what's your address?
It's 6630 Cody Drive in West Des Moines.
Okay.
So I just have a question about the ongoing Google Fiber deal from last year. I just find it a bit strange the city approved spending over $40 million in taxpayer-funded bonds on a construction on behalf of a trillion-dollar corporation like Google, who can afford it. And just like during the times of COVID, with many citizens and businesses having to cut back, I just kind of want to know the reasoning why it was approved without letting taxpayers vote on it. And I'll hop back on mute and let you answer. And just appreciate your time for it in advance.
Yeah, I think, Matt, all your questions are probably contained in Mediacom's lawsuit. So we're not in a position to make any public comment on any of the allegations that are contained in the lawsuit.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else for Citizens Forum? Okay, hearing no one, we'll move on to Mayor, City Council, City Manager reports. Matt?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Kevin?
Nothing this time, Your Honor.
Russ?
Yeah, F&A has met a couple times since our last council meeting, I believe, and we are currently in the process of having the hotel motel applicants come in and do the presentations to us to receive hotel motel funds. We've had, I want to say, 8 different applicants come in. The only new one, I believe thus far, is the Make-A-Wish Foundation. All the other ones have been in before: Eddie Davis Center, Junior Achievement, Iowa Senior Games, Central Iowa Shelters and Services, and a whole host of other ones. We reviewed an amendment to the extension of the city program job requirements for compliance due to COVID-19. You know, we approved these development agreements, and the development agreements typically have a jobs requirement that you must create or retain a certain number of jobs by a certain time. And since we've had COVID-19, we believe there are some that may struggle with hitting those requirements in the given time. And so we have recommended providing for an extension for the applicants of city funds to meet those job requirements. We also are looking at, had discussions on hiring a fundraiser essentially to help us with fundraising for the Raccoon River pedestrian bridge, and had some good discussion on that. And we're going to be having further discussions with the fundraisers that we're looking at hiring. We also reviewed the revisions to the fees and charges that it's on the agenda tonight in regards to the Parks and Rec department. And that's it for my report, Your Honor.
Okay, Greg?
I have nothing at this time.
All right, Renee?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to share that Councilman Trimble and I had a really thoughtful meeting with the police chief and the deputy police chief this past Friday as a result of the task force that was commissioned to review the policies and procedures of the police department. And I think as a result of that, you asked and encouraged that there be further discussion. And so we are beginning to do that. Our first meeting was very robust. I mean, we didn't get through half of the kinds of things that we wanted to discuss, so we have future meetings set forth. So do know that the recommendations of this task force are not going unnoticed. They're not put in a 3-ring binder and on a file for no one ever to see. So there are further discussions. I anticipate that there'd be another report out of that report to this council. I think we owe you that. as a result, so what recommendations we will follow up with, what recommendations we can't. So just happy to be a part of those discussions as Chair of Public Safety, and I know that Rush Trimble shares the same sentiments. And then I would like to, if I may, just take a moment of personal privilege to acknowledge that Black History Month is this month, and it starts February the 1st. Shortest month of the year, but we'll take it. It's certainly a day for me to honor my rich heritage and the many accomplishments of my trailblazers. I, in fact, find it both an honor and a privilege to sit on this dais, thanks to those that have come before me and those that have struggled and lost lives so that my people can vote and my people can be in elected offices. So I don't take it lightly whatsoever. I recognize the struggle of my ancestors before me that paved the way to make it easier for me, or easier, I should say, to sit in this seat. I honor the challenges of the African American people, and I honor how they have overcome so many struggles that just lie years behind us, not very many years, by the way, and there continues to be a struggle. On this month, I pay homage to Mr. Robert Parks for being the first African American to sit on this dais for the city of West Des Moines and to sit on city council. And I thank him for his service and his commitment to this great city and being what I call a trailblazer when you are the first. As we celebrate this month, take a moment, if you can, to recognize why this month is celebrated and to engage in conversations with folks that are different than yourselves, have different opinions than yourself, to appreciate the richness that we each bring to our communities. I, in fact, just yesterday had a conversation with Councilman Trimble over the Legacy Museum that's in Montgomery, Alabama, that deals with slavery and lynchings. And it was the most intense, impactful conversation because we're both different. He's white, I'm black. We have different, sometimes, ideology in the way we look at things. But it's until we all come together and talk about that rich heritage with comfort and ease and understanding, can we all be better in this community. So I welcome any discussion. I welcome conversations. But today and this month, I honor the people before me as we celebrate Black History Month. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Renee. As you and I have talked and some notes you've gotten, you've done a wonderful job for us. You've been great to have on here. We've put you in a lot of leadership positions. You've excelled, and you helped us through a really difficult time last year with all the challenges we had, and we would not be the community we are today without your help. So we appreciate how you approach things. We appreciate you being part of the team, and we're very glad that the residents voted you in because we're a much better community because of it. And I know we'll continue to be better because of your input and your help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah. Tom, any city manager report?
No report, Your Honor.
Okay. Item 4 is a consent agenda. Are there any items that any members of the council want to pull?
Yes, Your Honor. 4H, so 4H 1 and 4.
Or H4? Okay.
4H 1 and 4H 4, correct.
Okay.
I would just move the remainder of the items.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I guess also for the record, a couple hours before the council meeting, we received another letter from MediaCom raising concerns on items 4H1, 6C, 1 through 3. So we'll make sure, Ryan, that letter's part of the council materials for those items. Yep. But again, because we're in litigation, we're not going to make any public comments on any of those items. So, okay, so 4H1 is a resolution to order construction of the Digital Enterprise Last Mile conduit deployment. And Matt, you've consistently abstained on these items, so I take a motion for approval.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining. Also,
you.
4H4 is Ginger West Tree Clearing, South Grand Prairie Parkway, Boonville Road, Grand Avenue, and Johnson Creek. And I know, Matt, you've consistently abstained on the land items out in that area. So I'd take a motion to approve 4H4.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining on that one as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Item 5, one item, old business, vacation of a portion of Fuller Road and termination of a portion of public roadway easement, city initiated. This is an ordinance for the second, third reading, final adoption. There are no changes from the first reading.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ryan?
5 yes, an ordinance of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, vacating a portion of Fuller Road.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's approved.
Move waiver of third reading and adoption of final form.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's adopted. Item 6, public hearings. We have 3 tonight. Item 6A, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the agreement for private development, upper story housing program, 304 Fifth Street, initiated by Junction Development Catalyst LLC. This is continued from the January 19th, 2021 council agenda. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
January 8th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have we received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6A. And I know Scott Cutler's with us, so Scott, we might offer the mic first to you if you'd like.
Scott Cutler, 304 Fifth Street, West Des Moines. Can you hear me okay, or should I take my?
No, we can hear you, whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you. I'd like to first introduce 2 people who have asked to speak. Due to COVID, they'll both be calling in. The first speaker is Steve Muma with AOK Antiques in Valley Junction. Steve, are you there?
It's *6, not #6.
Yeah.
*6.
Oh, he's texting me. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And if you want to give us the name of the second one, and then maybe if you want to make some opening comments, then we can go back and ask Steve and your next speaker to share theirs as well, if you want to.
Sure, yeah. The next speaker is Suku Radia, a longtime resident of West Des Moines.
Oh, yeah, we all know Suku.
Yep, sure, yep. Are you on the line?
I am on the line.
All right, well, if he came back from Palm Springs for this, I was really going to be impressed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Scott, why don't you go ahead and give us an overview? We know how much you've invested in Valley Junction. We appreciate that.
Mayor, I didn't want to impress you that much, so I'm still in Palm Springs.
Right.
Well, that gives me more confidence in you, Suku. So why don't you go ahead?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. I've been a resident of West Des Moines for 46 years, and my wife, Mary, has been a resident of West Des Moines for 58 years. First of all, I want to thank all of you as council members for your great commitment to public service. I know the hours it takes, and I really applaud you. You know, West Des Moines is a truly remarkable place, and that did not happen by accident. I remember 3 years ago when Tom Haddon called me, wanted to get me involved in a project. I should have probably known better, but, you know, how can I say no to Tom? So I became involved in the fundraising for the Mid-American Energy Recplex, and we had a great time raising the money, and we were able to, of course, reach the goal. And, of course, then having DMU come across the street is another exceptional development. And I'm particularly pleased with how well Valley Junction has been rejuvenated. Scott Cutler is an absolutely wonderful young man. He has a great track record. This is going to be his 5th development in Valley Junction. And it's very gratifying to see a young man who grew up in West Des Moines doing great things in his hometown. As you know, he has already developed 4 projects in Valley Junction, lives in Valley Junction, and in this project, I'm particularly pleased that he addresses affordable housing. To give you some perspective on how long I have known Scott, I've known Scott's parents well before Scott was born. Scott's father and my wife actually lived across the street from each other when my wife's family moved to West Des Moines, and Mary was in 2nd grade, and so was Chuck Cutler, Scott's father. So we've known, my wife has known the Cutlers for a long time, and Scott and our son Ryan went to school together in the West Des Moines school system. To say that I know Scott well is probably an understatement. So I'm very, very supportive of this young man and his project. He comes with a great track record, and I simply just wanted to tell you that I truly endorse this young man, and I thank you for listening and simply urge you to vote favorably so that Scott can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Suku. We appreciate it very much. All you've done for our community and all you continue to do, even in your retirement. So we do appreciate that. So Scott is,
Thank you.
Yep, is Steve on the phone now? Steve, are you with us?
I guess not.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
You bet. I'll be very brief. Thank you very much, Suku, for your comments. My business is just me, and I work really hard to ensure that all the projects that I do add a lot of value to the Valley Junction neighborhood. This project would add 11 upper-story housing units to Valley Junction. I think it's a great project, and I ask for your support tonight. I guess I'll take any questions from the council, or I can sit down and step back up if I need to.
Yeah, why don't you let me
answer any
close the
questions.
public hearing, and then after we close the public hearing, if anybody's got questions, we'll have you come
Sounds
back
good.
up. So
Thank you very much. Yep, I apologize.
All right, so continuing on with the public hearing on item 6A, is there anyone else, I don't see anyone in the council chambers, but anyone else on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6A?
Good evening. Thank you. This is Renee Johanningmeyer with the Historic Valley Junction Neighborhood Association, and I appreciate your time for letting me speak. I know that I've spoke with several of you a couple different times on this, and what we're trying to understand is for this new housing, upper housing development, we know it's not the same project, it's a different project, and we've heard different numbers, so maybe Scott can help clarify on how many units there will be. And one of the concerns, of course, is continued parking. There has been a lot of new properties built there, a lot of new housing, but we still have the issue with parking. I, for one, live at 612 Walnut Street. So when you try to, just even crossing over to St. Kilda, I don't know if anyone's talked to the other business folks right in that area on where everybody is parking. Reminder, we don't have overnight parking there. We've struggled with parking for years, so that's not a surprise. Adding 11 more units on top of all the other construction projects that we've put in for upper story housing, that is a constant concern, and I would think that it would be a concern with the businesses, but it definitely is for us residents. It's very, very busy on just on that particular corner. And I guess the other question is how many units? I think that there's some confusion there. From what we've understood, all of them except for one are efficiencies. And all of these properties, as I have voiced from our association's concern, are almost all efficiencies, studio apartments. So the other question is has the council, I know that we have talked to two of the staff at the West Des Moines School District, and we understand the West Des Moines School is down another 100 students this year. We've been really, really trying and struggling to get families in the area, and a studio apartment isn't going to do that, not even a one bedroom. I think there's only, if we understood correctly, they were all studios with the exception of one bedroom, and it's pretty much been predominantly that with all the properties. I know another concern that we voiced with you folks is that it seems to be it's a dollar amount. You get paid $75,000 per unit, whether it's 450 square units or whether it's a 2-bedroom. So we can understand the incentive for the studios, but we're really concerned we're not getting affordable housing for actual families. Another question that we had, I mean, there's no doubt that the properties that are being built are beautiful, but we go back to the houses in the neighborhood, and I think that, you know, if you drive around the neighborhood, you can quickly see some that are almost at the point of disrepair, and a lot of those are rental units. So, you know, our question is why are we focusing on studios, just studio apartments where we're not going to have families? We're focusing on Fifth Street where we don't have enough parking, don't have overnight parking, so not good for the businesses and not good for the residents. And why can't we focus some of those funds on, and same thing even with Scott's business, on trying to fix some of these properties, these houses? I shared with you folks that we had, you know, several houses in the neighborhood that wait much longer and they're going to be beyond disrepair. And those would actually be perfect. I mean, we've got a gem of a situation here where we can easily compete with some of the outlying cities where people are moving to now because they don't have, we don't have any place for families. And that's these houses. They're small houses. You know, a lot of them don't have garages. They're not beyond repair, most of them yet. But why, you know, just putting all of these studio apartments is a big concern. Parking is a big concern. And we've also shared with you folks the idea of affordable housing. They're charging more for the price of these studios are more than a lot of these little houses they're renting for. So we're not seeing the affordability, and we're not seeing a solution for bringing families in. And that's what we wanted to share our concerns. And thank you.
Okay. Before we get some responses for you, I want to continue the public hearing. So is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Okay, hearing no one else, I'll declare the public hearing closed. I guess, Scott, whatever you're comfortable responding to that Renee brought up, and then it looks like, Tom, there may be a few of her questions for more of the staff related, so I'm not sure if you want Clyde or who you want to see may want to address that. But Scott, if you want to address whatever you're comfortable addressing that Renee brought up.
Yep, you bet. Thank you. So first of all, I'd say with regard to the unit mix, we actually have on this project 10 one-bedroom units and only 1 studio. I do have 1 2-bedroom that I rent in Valley Junction, but it's always difficult to fill. The demand seems to be for those studios and 1-bedrooms, and on this particular project, it's weighted heavily towards 1-bedrooms over studios. And second, with regard to parking, that's probably a question really that would be better for someone at the city to address. Our proposed plan is compliant with Valley Junction Historic Business District zoning code. In addition, there is a city parking lot directly adjacent to this parcel that has approximately 30 parking stalls and is very underutilized. So it's my belief that lot would have more than sufficient parking for what we're proposing.
And Scott, as far as affordability, it states here that all 11 of the rental units will be rented to households at or below 80% of the area median income.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. So Tom, I'm not sure who you want to address the parking issues, and then also Renee's concern. You know, I guess it's not related to this item as far as homes in disrepair. I'm assuming that we have annual rental inspections, and whatever's out of code, we should be advising the owner to bring up to code. So I'm not sure that that's relevant to Scott's project, but if anybody wants to
Lynn has looked at the parking issues. You want to speak to some of that, and/or Brian, do you want to be part of this or not? No? Anything?
We wore Brian out 2 weeks ago.
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. When a lot of these projects were coming forward, we raised the issue about parking. However, when the money stopped coming for the program, we kind of put it on the back burner to focus on other things. So we really haven't looked at the parking issue. It's something that we had hoped to do kind of as an overall Valley Junction revisioning project. And like I said, right now we don't have the staff to put the attention to it. Plus with COVID, we kind of felt that was something that really kind of needed that personal outreach rather than trying to do things by email or just making some assumptions. So honestly, we have not really looked at it. There is no requirement, obviously, on Fifth Street for the parking. So we really don't have a basis to say no to the project per se, just based on parking. Scott is right, there's some city lots around there. We know the historic West Des Moines master plan study said there is ample parking. It's just not front door parking necessarily. Certainly can understand Renee's concerns that this parking starts pushing into the neighborhoods, but quite honestly, that's kind of a double-edged sword. You kind of want the activity, and a lot of times it does push into residential neighborhoods. If it's public streets, it's kind of allowed parking, but at the same time, it does cause a problem for those people that have been there. I can relate, I wouldn't want it taking my front door, my street parking, but.
So I guess when are we gonna get our arms around the parking situation? I mean, if we keep getting projects in Valley Junction that we all want, we don't want the same question to keep coming up. So I guess we need to figure out how we're gonna get our arms around what adequate parking and what's not, so that we know what projects we can approve.
Well, and what's the policy on parking in city lots overnight? Can't do it, right? Not allowed?
Yeah, I think we've been back and forth on it.
Okay, because.
I believe they cannot stay more than 24 hours is what it amounts to, so they're always constantly having to go out and move them. But I don't believe the overnight parking is per se the problem unless it's a snow removal kind of situation.
Well, and I brought this up before, and maybe it was on another project, but we ought to work with these developers like Scott that are bringing in the affordable housing that we want, and try to amend our policies to try to do something about the parking in the area. And this is something I think we could do that'd be pretty easy. I mean, if you can already do 24 hours, you know, maybe it's just a slight tweak that we do so they don't have to keep going down and constantly moving. I know we need to keep the parking lots available for other business activity that's going on in either the city buildings or the businesses down there. But I think we could very easily work with Scott and others to amend our policies in regards to city parking lots to take care of this.
Yeah, we can look into that. That's technically
Okay.
not a Title IX, so we'll have to figure out where all it's in code.
Right.
And I think we were at the point of figuring out we need to identify other parcels that maybe are appropriate for acquisition, possibly turning over to parking. Again, like I said, it was just thought we could do it more as the comprehensive approach rather than a.
Well, we talked
piece by piece.
about that at that meeting at the Learning Resource Center too. I think it was Councilman Michelson and Sandagger's last meeting, and I think Matt and Greg were sitting in the audience, and we were looking at a comprehensive plan for Valley Junction, and I had brought up that, you know, I would love to have us look at, you know, different parcels down there that we may own or that we could acquire, and look at doing some kind of a partnership with a private business to have, you know, retail down below and parking above or whatever. I think we're probably to that point with Valley Junction, period. Just the business district alone, that if we could invest in something like that, and I know it'd be a substantial investment, we could probably benefit that entire area.
Yeah.
You know, and not just because of this project, but even without this project, I think we could probably stand to look at doing something down there.
And I remember that meeting as well, and parking was brought up and it was discussed. And there seemed to be an appetite toward, again, looking at ways in which we can unplug some of those parking challenges and deal with those as we encumber them. So I'm very open to looking at parking options and flexibility of things that the city can do to allow for more ease of parking and the bottleneck of parking. I think we have the fortitude and wherewithal to look at what we consider issues and problems and solve those.
Yeah, certainly don't disagree. The individual that we had dedicated to this whole program shifted over to CED.
Yeah.
And their plate's full and our plate's full, and
Sure.
right now I'm sorry, I just don't have the staff to
Right.
make it a priority.
There's a,
We might just have to hire a consultant for this and move this forward, but there are I think there's other ways to maybe register people who live there to park we do have a lot of parking behind, right? I mean, there's quite a bit of area parking.
Yeah, like I said, the historic West Des Moines master plan study indicated that there's ample parking in Valley
I
Junction.
think it's how we allocate it and use
Allocated
it that
in
way.
front door necessarily.
So we need to move that at the front of the line, and we'll just have to get that one way or the other, so we get some options out in front of, we can bring back.
Well, yeah, and I guess we need to have the conversation as these projects go forward, because we don't want a project and someone says, I have no idea where they're gonna park. So, we're trying to incentivize redevelopment down here, and these are great projects. They're all consistent with the master plan that we had plenty of input on. So, I'm not sure it's fair to someone who spent a lot of money trying to put a project together to have an answer at the end, well, we don't know if there is adequate parking.
Yeah, and like I said, the way the code is right now, I could not stop them by the
Right,
basis.
that's the big thing. Even if we wanted to, there's nothing that says that he can't do the project due to the parking. We just don't have that ability if we wanted to, and I'm not suggesting that we would, but, and I don't know, maybe that's something we need to look at going forward in the future. I'm not sure if that's something that the council wants to look at, but.
Well, I think there's adequate parking. The question is how convenient it is, and that's going to be reflected in Scott's ability to rent the units.
Right.
So you might have people that say, you know what, I don't mind walking 2 blocks or 3 blocks. I want to live down here. And we've been scrambling for affordable housing, and here's 11 units that want to come to where our city started. So this is, I think we all feel like this is a good project. So I guess, Tom, whatever we need to do to start getting comfortable, and I think developers are entitled to know, what we think as far as parking is concerned as well, when they come down to look at projects.
And okay, so, and I guess I wanted to also address, did I hear you say, Scott, that the building has 10 one-bedroom apartments and 1 studio?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's good to know.
Okay, yeah, any other questions for any council member?
Lynn, just a yes or no question. Would it be safe to assume that if we had a really quality set parking plan for the future, it might encourage more development?
Yes.
I think people would be more, I assume that folks would be more willing to, because they have that certainty. All right, thank you.
I would just, are we done taking public comment or, okay, I would just say that, I want to back up on affordable housing. I mean, this is a discussion that we had, I don't know how many years ago, and, we realized that it was an issue in our community. We wanted to make sure that we provided housing that, workforce housing, people that were working in the city of West Des Moines that couldn't afford to live here, and this is what this provides. And, I'm frankly proud of us as a city. I'm proud of us as a council that we have worked so hard on trying to provide this workforce housing in the city. It's been a huge need that we identified. And really, as I look around the metro area, I don't see a lot of other communities that are putting forth the effort that we are in regards to affordable housing. We sat down years ago, all of us, and brainstormed different ideas on affordable housing programs that were out-of-the-box programs that maybe hadn't been tried before. We were fortunate that we had a residential TIF, whereby 38% of the revenues there have to be put forth towards low and moderate income housing. And so we had a source of revenue to play with, if you will. And I'm just really proud of the programs we came up with, this one being one of them. It's been very successful, bringing in workforce housing into West Des Moines. I had a conversation, Renee Johanningmeyer, you and I talked. You brought up a lot of very good points for discussion on the housing programs that we have. I've committed to you that I'd be talking to Christine Gordon about the discussion that we had in regards to, the incentive that we provide. And, you're right, we don't say that here's the incentive and you have to do a 2-bedroom or you have to do a 1-bedroom or a studio. We don't say that. In our initial blush of this program, we didn't specify that. Maybe in the future, maybe it'd be good to provide different levels of incentives based on the type of units that are constructed. Maybe you get more of an incentive for a 2-bedroom to bring in a family if that's something that the council wants to do, and that's a priority, is bringing in more families rather than just individuals. We could look at restructuring the program in that regard. We can take a look at other out-of-the-box ideas that we had talked about before and didn't implement, and looking at doing that as well. So my plan is to talk to Christine about this, do some brainstorming with her, and maybe even bring this back to F&A for another discussion. We don't have a lot of funds left in this TIF district, but I want to say we've got maybe a couple million that will be put towards this in the future, and so maybe we have another discussion at the council level on what other programs we can have to encourage families and affordable housing in West Des Moines, and what amendments might be prudent to make to the program. So
I see that this agreement came through Finance and Administration Subcommittee with a recommendation. So I guess I'm ready for a motion. and a
Now,
second.
where I'm at on this, and I think you guys all know it, I don't support it. The main reason is because he's taken what he had planned for Fourth and Railroad, and because he could not get that rezoned Historic Valley Junction Business District, he then strategically bought 304 Fifth Street because it doesn't have any requirements for parking. I think we're getting overloaded in that area with the apartments, and there is no place to park. I think the businesses are gonna suffer, like Renee said. Scott talked about the parking lot there behind 318 Fifth Street. As you all know, our Fire and EMS administration is gonna be moving down there, and that's where they're gonna be parking. Obviously, they don't wanna park out front where customers and residents, or property owners are gonna park at when they come to the Fire and EMS administration for whatever it might be. Several weeks ago, I had suggested that we take this money from the TIF district and put it into single-family housing, whether it be owner-occupied or rental, and I think we seriously need to look at that. Apartments aren't the answer. We want families in there, so I don't support it.
I would just make a comment about that, and the comment that I'd make is that, a couple weeks ago, we put a historic amount of money into the Metro Home Improvement Program, a program that normally receives a 2-year allocation of $40,000, and we just put an additional $125,000 to basically take care of everybody that's on that waiting list, and that's owner-occupied rehabilitation. I know that that's something that's near and dear to Kevin's heart, and we all were supportive of doing that and did that. We also have put more money than I've ever seen towards the Neighborhood Finance Corporation program. And that also is for owner-occupied rehabilitation. So, I think we've put a lot of money towards owner-occupied rehabilitation. Could we put more towards that? I'm willing to take a look at it, but I think we've done an awful lot in that regard. And, the takers on our program for owner-occupied rehabilitation is way more than any other city in the metro. We do a good job, to the credit of Christine Gordon and her team, of running the program, promoting the program, making people aware of the program, and that's why we've had a waiting list. So, interested in taking a look at that in the future. Maybe we could put more money towards it, but we do put an awful lot of money towards owner-occupied rehabilitation.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. I just, a couple comments here. I have also had a couple very good conversations with Renee Johanningmeyer, and appreciate her comments tonight. I've also met and had several good conversations with Mr. Cutler, and but beyond that, I went down to Valley Junction. I walked into Nan's and talked to the folks in there about what their perspective was going to be on the building next door. I spoke with Ann Seltzer, who has her office immediately next door to this area. I went over to the quilt block across the street. I looked at the parking lot behind the building. I spoke with Matt Hagee with the Historic Valley Junction Foundation. And frankly, over the last couple weeks, I've received a lot of communications in support of this. And I guess the best way I can describe it is, when I was there and I looked at the parking lot, it was empty behind the building there. And that was something I spoke with the various businesses about, and I didn't receive any feedback that Ann Seltzer had problems with parking out front, or that Nan's had an issue. But certainly on the backside, there was quite a bit of parking back there. The folks that I spoke with were saying, hey, we got to fix that specific building up. It had a lot of issues that needed to be resolved, and it was consistent across the board that something needed to be done there. And we've talked. I know there was a lot of conversation before I was on the council about the importance of workforce housing. And if we've got a program, the program was something that folks had an opportunity to apply for, and the process played out. And I'm not interested in changing rules in the middle of a game, in the middle of the process. If on a go-forward basis, we need to look at how we allocate things, I'll be the first to say, let's do that. Whether it's a program itself, whether it's parking in the area, whatever it may be. Always, for me, it's about continuous improvement. But at this point in time, what I've personally seen in visiting the area and talking with a lot of folks is that this is overall a good project. And, you know, and I appreciate the approach, frankly, that Renee has taken. Johanningmeyer, she was very respectful and had very good points. Appreciate the approach Mr. Cutler's taken in walking through the various issues down there and resolving many issues that I initially had. So anyway, I just wanted to share, that's my perspective, and I'm supportive.
Okay, Renee?
Yeah, I'd just like to say too, I really appreciate this dialogue. I really appreciate Renee calling in and sharing her thoughts and feelings. And whether we see eye to eye on every point that she's raised, that might be, that happens. But I'm glad that there is a process where people can call in and be heard. The notion about the families and the school district and a dwindling school district is so much greater than 11 units that we're talking about. So I really feel like that is a bigger issue for this city, that school district can work with us and we can try to talk about that. But 11 units, I don't think has a major impact on the dwindling school situation that lies before us. We're all concerned about that, but we need to figure out what bigger, better ways in order to do that. The thing about affordable housing or these units is that it's housing for people, young people, that can't afford their first home. It's housing for people coming right out of college that wants to stay in West Des Moines and live in West Des Moines and live kind of in a vibrant area like Valley Junction. So it meets the needs of a lot of different types of residents that work here in West Des Moines or outside West Des Moines. So I'd like us to, again, make this commitment to look at parking and a bigger global issue, because I think that we really do need to look at that. I think there's an appetite for that. I think that in terms of the Fixer Up project, I won't repeat what Councilman Trimble has said, is that we did dedicate additional monies for the rehab of houses to deal with all the houses that were on the waiting list. So there is a commitment to try to help where we can. It may not be at the speed that everyone wants it, but we have certain amount of dollars to allocate for the greater good of the city that deals with the greater issues that are complex all the way around. So I appreciate all the discussion. I appreciate all the issues that are raised. And at the end of the day, it's whether we're moving the needle in a direction that is good for the area, good for the city, but yet still has complexities that need to be worked through.
Mm-hmm. And just to echo what Councilwoman Hardman said, we need to try to help where we can. And we've been using a lot of tools in our tool belt to do a lot of things for the residents of the city and potential residents of the city. But one thing that I think about when I think about these affordable housing units, these are going to be really nice places, and they are going to be affordable. But when we're bringing, whether it be young people, young families, with or without kids, they're one bedrooms, so it's not going to be families with 6 kids. But these are going to be really quality units, and the residents will really, really appreciate just the quality of the units. And I think those 11 units will make a difference, and we're going to try to help where we can. I really like how you put it there. We're going to try to help where we can. So I'm supportive of this project.
Okay,
And thank you,
someone
Scott,
wanna
for.
Yep, someone want to move approval?
This is Renee. Can I ask one more, just a couple more quick questions, please?
All right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can someone share with us how much is the rent for the 1-bedroom unit that's affordable? And can someone help us understand what basis of affordability? Because one of the first things that sparked these conversations is when I would, we talked to several younger generation folks that are working in Valley Junction and haven't been able to afford these units. So that affordability is really what we want to try to focus on too. So if someone can share what is the cost of a 1-bedroom unit, what is the cost of a 2-bedroom unit, And how do you base the affordability? Is it based on Des Moines all together, as we understand it, rather than in Valley Junction? So in other words, what we're hearing is if you look at maybe the wait staff in the restaurant, things are already pretty tough. But regardless, they're not. I mean, there's no one right in Valley Junction that's working there that's really seeing those as affordable units. And I know that was some of the discussions we had. So if you could help us with that, that'd be wonderful.
So Scott, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing what you want to rent those for. I think the affordability, isn't it, Tom, driven by these have to be rented to people who have incomes of 80% or are below the 80% area median income. So as a landlord, you have to verify their income amount, and you can't rent to someone whose income is more than 80% of the area median income. I mean, we have apartments like that. So it's really driven, I think, by a state mandate, but it's an obligation on the landlord to validate income to make sure that the people renting the apartments don't exceed the state guidelines for this affordability thing. It's not a city initiated, it's a state mandate.
Yeah, I think it's more based on HUD, that 80% of the area median income is based on HUD guidelines, and that's, oddly, the state is looking at doing an affordable housing program. I think Director Durham has rolled that out, and that's exactly what they're using is 80% of the median area income based on each individual area where housing might possibly
Maybe
go.
Christine Gordon has some information.
So, Christine, I don't know if you have
Yes, Christine?
anything to add to that.
Sure, I can speak to that.
Thank you.
Yes, the guidelines are from HUD. It is the Des Moines, West Des Moines statistical area, so we are lumped together with them. That's where the income guidelines come from. The rent limits, we used the rent limits from the Iowa Finance Authority that they use on tax credit properties. And the mayor was correct around income verifications. The landlords need to complete all the paperwork. They actually send it to me. I review it and stamp approval for that particular tenant to sign the lease.
Okay, so Scott, the last question is, are you comfortable, or do you know yet what the rent you're going to ask for these units is?
You know, we don't know exactly what the rent will be. I can tell you that we will, of course, be 100% compliant with all the regulations of the program. I have 4 units that utilize the same program that are currently actively being rented. And I mean, I would never want to speak to any of the specifics of my current residential tenants just out of consideration for their kind of personal, the security of their personal information. But I can tell you, we have a tenant that works in Valley Junction at a restaurant. We have other tenants who work in West Des Moines. From my experience, from what I've seen, the program is accomplishing, I think, a lot of the things that you've indicated are potentially goals of the program.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, you can only charge what people willingly rent for them, and you're better having people in there paying something than vacant. So at some point, the market's going to dictate, based on the income levels, how much rent you can charge for these units so that they can be rented.
That's
Well,
correct.
and again, I mean, I plan on having that conversation with Christine, plan on bringing that back to FNA, and, you know, this is something the council can talk about is, you know, do we have to stay with 80% or less of the median area income, or, you know, does the council want to shoot lower than that? You know, what level makes sense? What are we trying to, you know, who are we trying to house? And we can have those discussions.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank
think,
you.
Ryan, I got a motion and a second, don't I?
I heard a motion from Trimble. I did not hear a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and no abstentions, so the item passes 4-1. Item 6B, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Grand Avenue reconstruction, 1st Street to 6th Street, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
January 22nd, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6B. Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We have 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? I guess a comment from me. I've been involved in this project for over 10 years. And it's amazing. I know the staff, there were businesses down there that were concerned about access. And I mean, everybody wants the project done, but everybody had an issue with how it was going to be managed. So kudos for us, not fun to take 10, 12 years, whatever it took. But we got to a point now where we don't have anyone raising concerns, which is amazing down there. So much appreciation for the years of tolerance and working through these issues with the businesses down there and some of the residents, because this is a challenging project at the end of the day. So it's really nice to see this going forward.
I also want to add one more thing, too. We've got a couple great representatives on the MPO. We've got a great chair of the MPO, and I want to thank, I don't even remember what it's called anymore. It used to be the STP Funding Subcommittee and STBG Funding Subcommittee. So I want to thank Tom and Steve for all their hard work to solidify these funds from the MPO, and thank the MPO for providing these funds. That's going to provide a significant source of funding for this project, and our local taxpayers won't have to pay as much as a result. So thank you for all of your hard work.
It's exciting to see the redevelopment. I mean, I think all the stormwater projects is north of $10 million. I mean, this is really going to be a very awesome area now, and this was the missing link to it. So, okay, all in favor of 6B, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that item is approved. Item 6C, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the West Des Moines Digital Enterprise Conduit Deployment Segment 3, Phase 1, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date that what notice was published?
January 22nd, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Received any written comments?
Just the one correspondence received today that's placed on the dais.
Okay, from MediaCom. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6C? And again, just to remind you, if you have questions or issues that relate to the MediaCom litigation, we're not at liberty to respond to those. Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have two resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And I'll abstain, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah, that's
Thank you.
right. Matt will abstain. Okay, those items pass as well. Item 7, new business. 7A, Wells Fargo ground mount solar, 800 South Jordan Creek Parkway, approval of installation of a ground-mounted solar energy system, Wells Fargo Bank, N.A. This is a resolution to approve the major modifications, and there is no outstanding issues. And this came through the Development and Planning Council Committee as well.
Move approval of the major modification.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I would just say again, I'm proud of the work that we've done. Years ago, we made changes to allow people to do solar and wind, and we're seeing applicants come in and take advantage of this and be green and save some money, and so this will be a great project. So I think I saw, 8 acres worth of solar arrays? Wow, that is pretty substantial, so.
I'm quite enthusiastic about this because when it comes to, we just put solar panels on our house about 2 months ago. So we took advantage of the prior council work of allowing for that a couple years ago. So, and Wells Fargo's putting a few more on than we did. But I'm incredibly enthusiastic because it means we're generating power right here in our community, and it's going to be helpful to take the pressure off the system and the grid during summertime. And this is going to be, again, you said it's a great look in a lot of ways, and it's important too. So I'm really glad Wells Fargo is going forth, and I'm glad the city's been a partner for them in this way.
Yeah, I'd like to also echo that. When great things are happening, you just want to turn cartwheels because it is so good for the city. I remember about a year after I was elected, you're kind of naive. You don't know what you're doing until after about a year and a half or so. But I called this meeting together with Tom and some of his leaders to talk about what is the city doing as it relates to solar and all of that. And there was a gentleman at the meeting that knew more about it than all of us in the room together, but really acknowledged that we were moving a little bit slower than whatever. But this is a good day, and can't wait to call this person to say we need to celebrate because we are being progressive, and we are inviting other ways to allow us to be green and efficient. So thank you so very much, and I'm excited about the direction this project is going.
You should see, I asked one staff for a list of all the things that we're doing in regards to being green and using alternative energy sources and all kinds of different things. And I mean, that email that they put together for me was probably a list, 2-3 pages long of things that we've done in regards to water quality improvements, using solar, using wind, and, you know, we've got a green roof on our project down in Valley Junction, historic City Hall, and, I mean, I think that building that we did is like LEED certified, I don't know what, platinum LEED certified or gold or something like that, so.
Platinum, I think it was.
Platinum. So we've really, you know, taken the bull by the horns and gotten behind being green and done a lot of great things in the city in that regard, so.
Certainly the future. And I think the boathouse had some sort of solar involved, or at least there was a consideration there. Anyway, one thing I did want to add to the conversation here is this came before development and planning a while ago. And at that time, there was an issue about stormwater, and I'm glad to see that not only are we looking at solar, but we're also solving a stormwater problem here as well.
that's right.
So it's kind of a twofer. It worked out well.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
agree. Thanks for
people
the
should-
reminder on that, Matt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and people shouldn't underestimate the magnitude of this. I mean, I think that campus is 1,000,001 or 1,000,002 square feet of office space. At one point, they added 5,000 new jobs down there. So when you look at a project that's going to have an impact, to be able to provide renewable energy for a campus that's over 1,000,000 square feet, that was the 7th largest economic development project in the nation, I think, in 2007 when they did it. So now you've taken one of the largest developments in the city of West Des Moines. This is going to impact. So this is not like a house or an apartment project. This is a massive campus.
That's great.
So
Agree.
kudos to them. All right, all in favor of item 7A, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that item's approved. 7B, Subway and Dairy Queen, 308, 340 Grand Avenue, site modifications due to the Grand Avenue widening project. Real Estate Holdings 2 LLC. It's a resolution to approve the minor modification. There are no outstanding issues.
Move approval of the minor mod.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Question, and I'm not sure, I guess it's probably for Lynn. This one and the next one for Charlie's Filling Station, I'm a little concerned as to why it's a modification for them. So they're having to pay for these since we're taking the driveways away, or what's the?
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. No, they were not charged. These minor mods are actually the city initiated minor mods. We do have to have the property owners obviously in agreement with doing these. Brian, you can confirm, I believe all the improvements, all the changes that are happening are actually part of the city projects, but
Okay. All right, thank you. That's good.
Okay, all in favor of 7B, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item passes. Item 7C, Charlie's Filling Station, 305 Grand Avenue, modification of the site due to Grand Avenue widening project. Fairway Stores, Inc., resolution to approve the minor modification as well, and there are no issues.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. 7D, plat of survey parcels 2020-2023 and 2020-2024, subdivide Lot 6, 5760 Redbud Way into two portions for intercorporation into Lot 5 at 5730 Redbud Way and Lot 7 at 5775 Redbud Way. Greenspawn Property Management, Inc. This is a resolution to approve and release the plat of survey, and there are no outstanding issues.
Move approval and release of the plat of survey.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 8A, we will receive, file, and refer to Finance and Administration Council Committee the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Item 9, other matters. 9A is any legislative updates. I don't know if, Jamie, anything from you on this since you're kind of leading our group?
Certainly. I can just give a couple of updates. The subcommittee did approve registering against Senate Study Bill 1079, which prohibits cities and counties from adopting an ordinance which an ordinance which would prohibit landlords from refusing to accept federal housing vouchers. That's a lot of double negatives, but essentially it preempts us from passing an ordinance requiring landlords to accept federal housing vouchers as a form of income, which is something that West Des Moines has been considering. I know Des Moines did so, and we've been kind of researching other communities. I think Dubuque has explored it or possibly has one in effect, and we've been looking into similar items in Cedar Rapids. Pretty much everybody, the League, Metro Coalition, many other individual cities are registered against this bill. We are also still registered undecided on subcommittee on a House Study Bill 54, which relates to Chapter 411 benefits. There's a lot of unknowns about this bill. We're just researching, trying to get as much information as we can. Metro Coalition's also researching, as well as the League of Cities. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about any legislative matter? Okay. Does any council member want to raise any other matter tonight before we go into our workshop? Okay. Here, no one will officially adjourn the council meeting, but re-adjourn for our workshop to discuss the fiscal year 21-22 capital budget.